Welcome to the Sustainable Industry Podcast, the transformation resource for net zero leadership. I'm Nick Cox, the net zero champion here at Sustainable Industry, and I'm joined today by Adam Brennan, the Chief Sustainability Officer at Thai Union Group, and Steve Evans, the Director of Research into Industrial Sustainability at the Institute for Manufacturing. We're talking today about SeaChange 2030, the latest sustainability strategy launched by Thai Union Group. In the first half of this pod, we're going to be looking at the strategy itself, how they define some of the targets. We're going to be looking at the culture within Thai Union Group and managing some of those internal frictions when delivering a change program of this size. We're also going to be looking at reporting and financing and how we might have to rethink some of the traditional ROI calculations. I started by asking Adam if he can outline what SeaChange 2030 is and how it builds on previous strategies. Let's jump straight in.
Thanks, Nicola. So at Thai Union, sustainability is not a new topic. We actually introduced our first SeaChange sustainability strategy back in 2016. And at that point in time, there was a bright spotlight on the seafood industry. And we really kind of took a step back and recognized ourselves that there's a significant opportunity here to improve the way we operate and to improve the way we source and procure our seafood products. So when we introduced the first strategy, we were really focused on two fundamental areas. Those are issues above the water and below the water. So above the water, what we're really talking about is protecting the tens of thousands of workers, if not hundreds of thousands of workers that are employed by the seafood industry, and making sure that those workers are protected and they have safe and decent work. And then as we look below the water, there are risks associated with wild caught fishing. And so it is our responsibility to make sure that those fishing methods are sustainable and that we are making sure that the fish stocks are also sustainable as well. So those are kind of the two fundamental issues that we've been looking at in the past. With our new 2030 strategy, this is our plan to help reshape the seafood industry to really provide solutions for both people and planet. And with this new strategy, we're taking a very holistic look at all of Thai Union's social and environmental topics and issues that we need to be managing. And the new strategy works towards 5 future outcomes under 2 thematic pillars: people and planet. Under people, we really want to be providing safe and decent work. And we also want to be driving healthy and positive nutrition. On the planet side, we're going to be tackling climate change, issues related to biodiversity, and also looking at our role in supporting the circular economy. And underneath these 5 future outcomes are 11 interconnected commitments that is really paving the way for the seafood industry and ourselves as we look at creating that global transformation that the industry needs.
Adam, can I take you up on that? One of the reasons we're talking is that the SeaChange program is a leading program. It's really comprehensive. It's well informed. You've been listening to the science. You've been listening to your stakeholders. But I'm quite taken by your phrase, reshape the industry. Isn't it enough to actually work on yourself? Are you being bold, or do you think it's actually necessary to drag others along with you?
I think it's both. I think, if you look back at where we started our journey in 2016, we were one of the first in the industry to introduce a sustainability strategy. And at that point in time, we were very much focused on tuna, and we were very much focused at looking at the fisheries. Now, for Thai Union, we don't own any fishing vessels ourselves. So we have a shared responsibility. So the more we can work with our industry partners, the more we can create that permanent, scalable change that I believe the industry needs to address. And so it is both. It is both a bold, ambitious plan. We hope to share to the rest of the industry what works, what doesn't work, but through numerous partnerships that we have in place and the leverage down our supply chain by being one of the biggest seafood processors in the world, we hope to really, truly create scalable impact across the industry.
So I'm really interested in why these things start. You have leadership in an organization, and any organization, it's hard enough to deliver to what customers desire at a cost, at a price that's profitable, etc., etc. And yet in 2016, something made the company sit up and take notice. You mentioned tuna. Was it sort of bad publicity around tuna issues in particular?
So in 2016, I think, again, we recognized, we took a step back. There was a bright spotlight on the industry. There was a lot of campaigns at that time around the role of seafood in trying to protect nature, protect the environment, protect people, and not work against it. And so, there were a lot of NGO visibility at that point in time. And so that was one of the big pressure points in 2016. As we fast forward now to 2023, we've actually had a lot of successful partnerships with some of those early NGOs. We've worked with the likes of WWF, with Greenpeace. We have numerous other collaborations and partnerships in play now. And so the pressure points are very different today. And so one of the reasons why we introduced SeaChange 2030 is really to continue that leadership position, Steve, that you just mentioned we have managed to attain through the work we've done in the past. But obviously leadership is not a stagnant term. New science comes into play, new issues emerging, come into play. And so we constantly have to challenge ourselves by what we mean with the term leadership. And our 2030 strategy is really that new definition. But some of the drivers behind it, again, are different. So, we're looking to retain that leadership industry position. But if we go back to 2016, many of the things that we announced at that point in time today have become licensed to operate within the seafood sector. So that, again, helps us to create that scalable change across the industry to make sure that these ambitions ultimately become more commonplace. We also believe it's a must for long-term business success. We are a tuna company. We are also a large shrimp company, and we are reliant on the health of the world's oceans. And so we have a duty and accountability to protect that natural resource for the long term. In addition to that, Thai Union also supply into some of the biggest retailers in the world. And so we've also looked at some of our retailers' own commitments in climate change, in biodiversity, in traceability, in social and well-being. And we would like to consider ourselves as a trusted supply chain partner that can help our customers deliver on some of their own ambitions as well.
Wow, there's a lot in there. It all sounds blinking lovely, doesn't it? Let me see if I can unpick it a little. Most organizations that I work with would be reticent, even scared, to knock on the door of WWF or Greenpeace. I'd really like a little bit more of that story. How do you turn something that's confrontational into something that seems to be helpful?
So I think the way that Thai Union operates is, we're very open to ideas. We acknowledge that we don't have all of the expertise, we don't have all of the resources on the ground, and we need to learn from everybody that is operating or connected into this industry. And so when we started off our journey back in 2016, we had very pragmatic relationships with a few of these organizations that helped to deliver true impact in Thai Union supply chain. As we've gone through over the last 7-8 years, we've internalized many of those requirements into our daily operating practices. We've encompassed them into our responsible procurement and sourcing guidelines. So we're really now moving beyond some of that early work, really now into best practice, so that when we start looking, for example, in our tuna supply chain, we're going above and beyond, and we're starting now to announce new commitments in electronic monitoring, and also for the protection of endangered, threatened, and protected species. So it is possible to work for, with NGOs. We certainly find it extremely valuable to do so, and they can, really create true industry impact if we work together.
I've got one, maybe nasty, difficult question for how this all kicks off. One of the things that I think I've observed when large organizations first take significant moves towards sustainability, they do it in a way that matches their self-image. So if they are very caring to their staff, you find that their first targets are about employees rather than, say, carbon. And then it broadens. And I wonder if the original 2016 SeaChange was somehow in the image of the Thai Union Group. Is there something to do with the company culture that helped shape that first set of targets?
I think, our sustainability journey from 2016 to 2023 to 2030 completely relies on our own company, the way we operate on a day-to-day basis. Our sustainability strategy has been so successful because we've really been able to internalize it. And the internalization of sustainability is extremely difficult if company culture is working against you. So the fact that we've got to where we are today, I think speaks a lot about the culture within Thai Union. And also the fact that we really have true management support of our sustainability strategy. And we are really able to cascade it across a global footprint. Thai Union operates in numerous different supply chains with numerous different product categories all around the world. We have a huge, market in the US, in Asia, in Europe. We have a manufacturing footprint in Africa, Europe, Thailand, Vietnam, the US. So the scope and the amount of people that are encompassed within this strategy would never be possible without the enablement of that corporate culture that we have at Thai Union.
Look, Adam, I happen to know that you've not always worked there, right? You've worked in other sectors and other companies. So I just want to ask what might be a yes-no question, but maybe we can expand. How important is it important to understand company culture when you're beginning this journey, especially? So if you take up a role as Chief Sustainability Officer in a new organization, do you devote time to understanding the company culture? Because that's going to help you define a pathway that might be acceptable or workable.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. I think this is absolutely key. And this is exactly, the way I operate. You only need to look at LinkedIn to see that I've worked for Thai Union now for close to 24 months. So it's really at that 2-year anniversary point where I'm announcing our new 2030 strategy. So, when I joined Thai Union, I had a lot to learn. I had to learn about our company culture. I had to learn about the seafood industry. I come from the fashion and footwear industry where I spent the last decade working on very similar topics. But, there are unique challenges to the seafood industry that, I had to learn about so that I could deliver a pragmatic yet ambitious strategy for Thai Union. So, I think the fact that it took that period of 24 months to do exactly what you've just said, but also we developed this strategy completely in-house. There were nearly 100 people involved across all levels of the organization, and we've really built it from the ground up. I have not sat here in my sustainability office and dreamt up some vision that doesn't have the backing of the rest of the organization. We had different sprints for all of these different commitments that we had, and we've really worked with the business units to co-create these targets. Again, to make sure that we don't just have big, bold, ambitious commitments, but we have a concrete roadmap on how to get there, and we understand roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities of who needs to deliver within Thai Union.
Well, I think we've squeezed to death that topic of really why do you get started? And for all the organizations out there that are very advanced, we'll move on to questions that might be relevant to them. But, for many organizations, they're already doing some things about sustainability because their customers are demanding it, their system demands it, the situation they're in demands it. But to become more holistic, to go and grab the bigger picture and see it as a massive opportunity, but a significant program is something that you've done. And I think we've picked up a lot of lessons there. And I really like this emphasis on being culturally appropriate. You can't just photocopy somebody else's strategy. Unless you've got a photocopy of their culture, you shouldn't photocopy their strategy. Right. Nick, I'm sure you'd like to move us on.
Yes, indeed. It'd be good to get onto some questions around how it was received internally by the shareholders within Thai Union, because it's an incredibly ambitious transformation strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when we put this strategy together, we wanted to make sure that we're meeting a diverse range of stakeholders that now connect into sustainability. And investors is one of those areas that I can't say is new, but it's still in its infancy. And so we really wanted to make sure that we're connecting in with our investment community to understand what are they beginning to do in ESG. Just over the last 6 months, I've seen huge momentum with a handful of our, investors asking us about the risks, environmental and social, that's connected in with our supply chain. They're asking us about the programs and initiatives that we have in place to help mitigate these risks. So this is certainly a growing area. I know I spend a huge amount of my time reporting into the likes of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index and MSCI. And obviously all of this data is to help inform the investment community on making more responsible choices when it comes to their investments. So we sat down with our investment community. We just did a number of meetings in New York and in London around the launch. And honestly, we explained about a Thai Union again. This is not new for us. $200 million will be spent on sustainability between now and 2030. That is our entire net profit of last year. So it shows how serious that Thai Union are taking it. But we also have to deliver shareholder value. And so, we really see a huge business opportunity here to align ourselves with some of our company's visions to help mitigate some future regulatory risk, be it in the form of carbon taxes, or whether it's just to protect the natural resource like tuna that we are inherently reliant upon. And so, I would say in the aftermath of the launch, the reception of SeaChange 2030 has been positive, not just amongst the investment community, but amongst all of the stakeholders that are connected into this journey and have a role to play.
Look, Adam, you're very polite response, but you know that Nick is actually asking, did some of them have a heart attack, right? Did some of them come at you and go, what the heck are you spending all this money on? That's my money, give it to me.
No doubt that there will be folks out there, and it's not just in the investment community, it's, within our suppliers as well. We don't always find like-minded people that are aligned with the vision of Thai Union. And no doubt that will be the case in many areas. But honestly, the reception so far has been very positive, and we've been praised for really trying to demonstrate what a company, a private sector organization like Thai Union can be doing in this space.
And listening to you, you're practicing some of the phrases that no doubt you use in front of investors. Talking about, hey, we've got to make our future resilient. We rely on an ecosystem being healthy to provide us with our raw materials, right? So let's, small investments that help that ecosystem continue to be healthy into the future is an investment in our own future. That type of argument, I think we heard you practicing. But my question would have been, does everybody in the investment community have the skill to understand that? And maybe the second part of that question, if I'm extremely short-term thinking, I don't care about making an ecosystem healthy in 2035 because I want to maximize my profit in this quarter. So are things changing out there? Am I being a horrible cynic?
Steve, I certainly think things are changing, and I think they're changing for the better. As I said, more and more of the investors are connecting in with some of these metrics that we report into. These metric systems are not perfect, but they do give a very good general indicator in terms of how well the company is beginning to internalize sustainability. If I look at the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, Thai Union are number one. not just in the seafood industry, but in the global food industry. And really, the definition that DJSI takes on sustainability is really holistic. It is not just the elements you think would be contained in it around social and welfare. It includes things like responsible taxes. It even includes areas like cybersecurity. The scope and the breadth is huge. More and more of the investors are beginning to tap into that data. And as they begin to do so, they're starting to internalize it. As I said, they're not perfect. So some of the investors are now taking an extra step and beginning to engage directly with us so that they can learn. We can educate each other, and we can really engage in very pragmatic and, effective dialogue that helps to, share best practices in the industry. So I think, Steve, it's going in the right direction.
So my assumption is that the pitch goes something like this. We are investing a large amount of money, the equivalent of last year's profit, but that investment is in our own future. It's not a donation to the world. It's an investment in our own future. We rely on that world to operate.
I think, what another different angle to this is just around that license to operate piece that I mentioned earlier. When Thai Union started its sustainability strategy, there is a premium, right? Sustainability costs money. And that is something that Thai Union had to absorb. And we absorbed it for a number of years. But what was a significant premium in 2016, today, as I said, has nearly become licensed to operate. So what was, I think, around $300 per ton of tuna in 2016 for some of our responsibility, commitments today is about $50 per ton. So you can see that as the industry has moved forward, has progressed, that a lot of those premiums dissipate. And that's something that we'll also be working closely to do as we move towards 2030. We want to show what's possible out there, but then we really want to work with our competitors on a pre-competitive basis on driving collective action. We want to be working with regulators. We want to be working with the investment community and with the NGOs to ensure everyone moves forward in a similar direction.
So you've mentioned two things there that I'll pick up on: 2030 and working with others. Very specifically, you've come up with a 42% reduction in scope 1, 2 emissions by 2030 as a target. It's always interesting for people. How did you come up with, why not 41 or 176?
So our commitment, just to make a small correction, but actually a very big correction, is that this target also includes scope 3, not scope just 1 and 2. And that is important because 90% of our greenhouse gas emissions are actually in scope 3. So we have a minus 42% reduction in scope 1, 2, and 3 by 2030 compared to a 2021 baseline. In addition to that, a net zero commitment by 2050. And so what we've used and what we decided very early on is that we want to use a credible framework. Ultimately, I don't want to be the one that decides if it's 42 or 41 or 46. Climate is encompassed within the latest science, and we really looked at how do we absorb all of that in setting our new targets. And so we moved towards the methodology of the Science-Based Targets Initiative. They, within the private sector community, are really beginning to take the lead and are deemed the gold standard in terms of how to set your climate change targets. So that is the methodology we used. When we were going through the target setting process, it's not easy. It takes a huge amount of data. And that is the easy part, although that was extremely difficult. Getting it past your boardroom is even more challenging. But actually, for Thai Union, we had a number of different options to us available at the time. And ultimately, what we signed off was the most ambitious pathway, and that is the 1.5 degree pathway. We all know, Steve, that we cannot allow the climate to increase over that limit if we want to avoid the catastrophic impacts of climate change. And so that's where the 42% comes from. It's really through that alignment with the Science-Based Targets Initiative against the 1.5 degree pathway.
I think we're seeing it emerge as some sort of, what's the right phrase? Easy to defend standard. So I'm seeing SBTI being used as a mechanism. We know it's got imperfections in it, but it's becoming a standard really quickly. And it is asking for a certain degree of ambition, it plus or minus 4.6% per annum, depending on your sector and special conditions. But that's reasonable. That's hard, but not crazy. And, is there an emotional dimension? Because you referred to, we chose to accept 1.5 degrees. If 1.5 degrees said we have to reduce by 86%, it might have been felt to be more difficult. So I think this balance between what is stretch, but somehow not scary. At the moment, SBTI numbers seem to sit right in that space. They offer something that isn't just science-based, but it's also not scary. So it's a good time to join for everyone who's listening, right? These are really good numbers because those are numbers the boards can find acceptable. If we wait 10 years, SBTI will be telling us we have to change at 8 and 10% per annum, and that's going to be hard, right? Hey, time to join.